So if we were to just do those little simple things, I think you'd see recruitment go back right back to where it was meant to be. I mean, you can't argue we're making more money than we've ever made, right? I don't want to hear about the public, and the news stuff. I've been to 46 states. The public overwhelmingly supports us.
True.
I'm now part of a television program. I'm telling you, the people that write in overwhelmingly support us. Overwhelmingly. It's not even a conversation. So that's not it. That's lame. That's an excuse that you're making.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness Podcast. We have a new and exciting special guest, and we're rounding out the month of navigating toxic work environments. So hopefully you have listened to the episodes and you've found something valuable. If not, listen to this one. Guarantee there's going to be some more value. So with that said, I am your host, Tami Sharp, joined by my partner in all things, Chris Zamora, and we have Tom Rizzo with us in the house today. So Chris, will you do a little quick intro of yourself, and then Tom will have you intro.
Yeah, my name is Chris Zamora. I'm retired law enforcement out of Arizona. I did 23 years, retired in 2021. And some of the things I did with the agency, I worked undercover narcotics right out of the academy. They put me undercover to go back to high school. So I did that for a couple semesters. I worked patrol, taught the DARE program. Did a second stint working narcotics. This time I went undercover within the Sinaloa cartel. I did internal affairs, robbery, homicide, and I'm a fitness instructor and a DT instructor. Currently, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, transformational life coach, and a yoga instructor, and CEO of Law Enforcement Coaching. So I'll throw it back to you.
And Tom, will you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, well, very impressive and very honored to be here, and so nice to meet you guys. So yeah, I'm a September 11th baby. Policing was in my family, but I didn't quite know when I was going to start my career. So September 11th kind of catapulted me into starting my career. So right as the dust was settling from that, I started my career in a small agency here in New Jersey, and I transferred to my current department just in the process of completing my 24th year. So I'm starting my 25th. Never saw myself getting promoted. I wanted to do interdiction. I wanted to do, the proactive style of policing. But I found myself, because of toxic work environments, that I wanted to be somewhat a solution to some of the problems I was experiencing. So I was fortunate enough to promote up the ranks to my current rank of captain. I've done a lot in the field, but nothing more passionate than I was about transformational leadership, which came from being a student of what West Point gives us up here in the Northeast, of a junior level semester course, and then they morph it into public service. So I went back as an instructor, and then I started to take it from there, teaching throughout the country about transformational leadership, wellness, resiliency. I wrote a book. And it's just something I really found a passion for doing. And yeah, so it landed me into the environment that I'm currently in now, and being the co-host of the show, on Patrol Live, the relaunch of Live PD, and I'm just having a good time doing it. But I always say my most proudest accomplishment is that of being a father of four, and I'm a student of the game of human behavior. So as much as I get invited to do things like this, I always look forward to learning more than it is, than what I could do by providing. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. There's a lot to unpack. We have your book, and I want to kind of start back at the baseline. So what, in your guys' opinion, creates a toxic work environment? So let's just keep it simple and start right there.
I think it's very simple. I think leadership is definitely sets the tone. But I do it in a different way. I don't necessarily say leadership in terms of rank, ribbons, patches, or pins. I just think what rises to, something to be expected every day in an environment. So sometimes that leadership can come from, whether it's at the line level, whether it's at the administrative level, but I think it's when the focus is on exterior and looking nice and neat as to what the public sees in us, what media sees in us, while failing to, do anything about or take any action as to what we know is happening within the four walls of our building. And I go back to very basic. I think that when you lose grocery line etiquette, is what I refer to it as, inside of your buildings. I think inevitably that then become that environment. You forget how to hold the door for somebody. You forget how to say please, thank you. You forget how to say good morning, good afternoon, how are you? But then simultaneously, we're expected at a moment's notice to extend that type of empathetic exchanges to perfect strangers. And I think that we've allowed that to be hijacked throughout the country, whether you're in Arizona where Chris is at, or whether you're here on the East Coast where I'm at. And that's the thing that pains me most. We're supposed to protect and serve what people, but I think we have, horrific people skills when it comes to how we deal with our own people.
I agree. Chris, what do you have to
Yeah.
say?
No, I agree 100%. And you're right, Tom. We're great at dealing with issues on the street, problems on the street. We are the best problem solvers on the planet, right? We will arrive on scene at the most chaotic of scenes, and within seconds, we can neutralize the problem and fix it, right? We're great at that. And we're great at talking to people, right? De-escalation and what have you. The problem is we don't know how to talk to each other, right? We just don't know how to have that conversation if somebody is struggling, or, how do we bring that up? Or I'll be honest with you, I didn't know how to do that a majority of my career. And I would get uncomfortable if somebody mentioned anything personal, right, in their own life. And I didn't know what to do. And I noticed I'm not a drinker, but if I was, the first thing I think I would have done was, hey, let's go to happy hour and let's talk it over some drinks, right? And
Yep.
that can create some self-destructive behavior, right? So we have to be mindful of that. But in reading your book, you talked about the mission statements of different departments and how sometimes it's just you're not focused on your own mission statement because it's just too vague, right? And it got me to thinking about my old agency and my old chief. And we watch our leadership. We watch how they project themselves, how they interact with the public. And we will follow their lead. And I thought about one of the greatest chiefs I've ever worked for. His name was Tim Dorn. And part of his mission statement is, I won't expect you guys to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And he meant that because, oftentimes he'd be out on the streets backing you up on a traffic stop, right? If he's out and about doing his thing, which is unheard of in a lot of these agencies. A police chief is actually out there doing things. And I've shared this story before where we locked down a homicide suspect in a house, and I had my rifle out behind a tree. And then the next thing you know, it's my chief who's covering my back, right? Because per policy, we need somebody to cover us. But he went out and made sure his people were safe. That makes a huge difference when you're dealing with an agency, right? When you're dealing with these officers, they will learn from how you are on the streets and how you treat people. So I agree with what you're saying, Tom, 100%.
So with the leaders, I mean, leadership, yes, and whether it's their actual titled position or if it's just a natural born leader within the department, what can we do and talk about kind of the up and coming leaders that are learning from the leaders that are already in place, for better or for worse? We've talked about that a little bit on previous episodes where it's learned behavior and it's passed down. So you're learning from your FTO, you're learning from your sergeant, and in the beginning of your career, you're admiring these people, you're looking up to them, and you want to impress them, you want to be respected, respect them. And so some of the toxic behavior gets passed down.
Yep.
So what can we do now? What kind of advice do you have to the younger generation that's coming up that does have toxic leadership, and they're not going to teach old dogs new tricks, basically? They kind of have to wait it out, because I know there are several departments that we are in contact with that really the chief does, I try to advocate for chiefs, but sometimes the chief really does just need to go. So when they're kind of stuck in that situation, what kind of guidance would you have for them?
Well, Chris alluded to it before, where I talk about mission statement. This isn't something that I'm going to say I created, but I'm proud to say it. I'm not afraid to tell anybody, and I get chiefs and sheriffs look at me with, the big eyes when I say this at their agencies. I tell their troops, you work for yourself, you work with an organization. So the reason why I said it is if you don't know what your compass tells you what to do in a situation, what your compass tells you on how you should treat another human being, what your compass tells you you will sacrifice, you won't sacrifice, then you're never going to get it right because it ebbs and flows with the tides, political pressure, what the current climate is, and societal pressures. So, as much as, and yes, you're preaching to the choir here, I cannot stand the further we are the only industry, and I get stones thrown at me for this, and I'll take it. We're the only industry that it seems as if, okay, the pressure alleviates the higher you go in an organization, which is baffling to me. And I always say I use this image in the class that I teach of a boy looking into a fishbowl and his eyes are magnified at a little goldfish. And I say that's what law enforcement leadership does. We feel like we're on the outside looking at the little fish. I think it should be course corrected in reverse. I think if chiefs, if sheriffs, if command level officers were to feel as if they are the little goldfish with the majority of the organization watching the way they swim, watching the way they behave, then you shouldn't feel like you're gassed, but there's just no way you should be at the top of an organization and be like, man, this is great. I could stay here for another 15 years. This is awesome. Because everything you have, you just do what? You just transfer on to somebody else to deal with? That's crazy. So I think in order to avoid the toxicity, you just got to remember who it is that you are. Nobody controls 100% of your day. And I know, listen, we could go back and forth. I'm sure Chris and I and share stories over a Shirley Temple as to who had better bosses or worse bosses. But all I'm saying is, I know for me when I was at my lowest, it's because I falsely subscribed to a system that another person controls 100% of my day. That's just not real. So I try to give people resolution strategies to take ownership and control of their gray space. Because then you can kind of like remember it, be like, man, I don't blame anybody. I say the worst leaders I ever had taught me the most. And what is it that they taught me? How not to behave.
So many great points in that. One of the sayings that I always lead with is, did you have a bad day or did you have a bad 5 seconds that you turned into a bad day, and then a bad day that you turned into a bad 10 years, and you let that just eat at you and you focus on the negative all the time. So we need to switch that and look back to what is going right. One of the things that we do in our classes, we kind of end our classes with everybody going around and sharing a positive story, something either whether it was a call that they responded to or somebody that they either impacted or impacted them for the better. Because the thing with mainly with officers is that there's a lot of talking about the bad calls, the commiserating, everybody's talking about the traumas and the pains all the time, but you guys don't get to celebrate the wins. And even if you do have those wins, it's like, well, you just everybody kind of dismisses it like it wasn't a big deal. We need to put more emphasis. There's a lot of wins. You are doing a good job. Um, Chris, did you want to chime in before I keep going on my tangents that we know
No,
I
go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, no, you're fine. If you're on a roll, keep going.
always. No, you said political pressure. So that's a huge one because I'm seeing that not just for the leadership, but on the line as well, that the political pressure, the social media pressure of having to, you're getting recorded, you're being watched, you're being like just kind of like the goldfish we were talking about. Everybody's watching law enforcement. Um, and I think there's a detriment to that where a lot of younger officers are hesitating. And I think that's where they're getting hurt because they're so scared to misstep in the public eye. Even if they know their policy and procedure like the back of their hand, they still hesitate because they're so afraid of that. So, with that said, what are kind of your thoughts on the political pressure and the social media parts of everything?
I just don't think that law enforcement leaders do a good enough job of explaining. You don't have to get acceptance, you just have to explain. Think of it this way, right? We have here in New Jersey, we call it OPRA, Open Public Records Act. I know a lot of people call it FOIA, right? When I say this, if you have a policy, okay, like here, let me give you, I'll give you a real quick example. In New Jersey recently, we were restricted from chasing stolen vehicles. They just said, oh, forget it. No more pursuing stolen vehicles. Nobody takes that and then communicates that to the public. So what does the surface look like? You call and report your car stolen. I get behind it. The person just drives away, and you watch me from your window go like this. What does it look like? The police aren't doing anything. So I say, why not put that out to the public with no opinion, not me giving a middle finger, a thumbs up, or a thumbs down to the politicians who did it, just saying, matter of fact, we now have a procedure that states this. And that's it. You just leave it at that. Everybody tells me, oh, but you're giving it away. The bad guys are going to know that. I went, guys, the bad guys know. So my attitude is, why not tell the public, who's the overwhelming majority, who the overwhelming majority are what? Good law abiding people. Let's inform them. I'm not giving you any other of the secret sauce. I'm not telling you the ingredients. I am telling you, though, this is what it is. Bang. That's it. Done. You take with that as you will, but we don't do that. Instead, we're more sitting there at the parades and taking the pictures of giving away ice cream cones and teddy bears. If that worked, we wouldn't have problems, because from Arizona to New Jersey, we have example after example after example of that type of pandering that does nothing to advance our narrative. One of my favorite Einstein quotes: if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it lives its whole life believing it's stupid. We're in the business of doing policing. I don't mean just locking people up. I'm saying, don't judge me on stuff I wasn't meant to be judged on. So I'm just going to give it to you black and white, opinion out. This is what it is that we do. This is our capabilities. This is our limitations. And this is it. And I'm not going to apologize for what it is that we do. Chris will back me on this. 23 years he did the job for. I've never met a cop who goes into a briefing and says, let's go kill us somebody today. It doesn't happen. It's never happened. If heaven forbid we have to do that, none of us want to. Chris is a defensive tactics instructor. I won't even look at the screen and I could ask this question. We want people to put the handcuffs on themselves. We get no glory of doing it. It doesn't matter before the cameras. I end up hurt now. My back is killing me. Now I'm going to miss my kid's sports game. Nobody wants it. But nobody's got the audacity to come in front of a camera and just say that. Just say it for what it is. Be honest. People will allow honesty, I think, in this game, and we're missing the opportunity for it.
Yeah, and I think you're, when it comes to command not conveying that message to the public, there's a fear. There's a fear that they're going to look weak, or that they're not in control of their own agency, or they might say the wrong thing to the right group, right? And you hit it on a very good point, that sometimes the argument is, we don't share this information because we don't want the bad guys to know. So the hardcore criminals in our society is 1%, right? So you would rather hold this information together because of 1% of the population versus 99%, right? And you're right. Just by communicating that bit of information, you're going to alleviate all that negative feelings, negative thoughts towards your agency. Open communication is key. Let your people know. When I say your people, your community, those in your town, city, state, even, on why you're not going to pursue on a property crime because of a statute or whatever it might be. But you're right. And, sometimes being a good leader, you have to go against the grain. And I will tell you, there was a sergeant from my agency. They were doing a high-risk traffic stop on a stolen vehicle. And there was a lieutenant who loves to police from his desk, right? He's listening to this on the radio. And in the middle of a high-risk traffic stop, he's asking the units on scene if they have their weapons out. Because if they do, this is a property crime, they should have it out. And he is now endangering that team, right? Because now you're getting your officers to second guess their decisions. We don't know what's in the car. car is stolen. What are stolen cars typically used for, right? Robberies, homicides, you name it. So the sergeant on that scene basically told the lieutenant, shut up, get off the radio. You're not on scene. I've got control of the scene. That right there is leadership. A sergeant doing that. Now, did that sergeant probably take some paper later on? He probably did. But did that sergeant earn respect of his team? Absolutely 100%. And that sergeant looked out for his team first over the politics, right? The image that this portrays, or hey, looks, this is a property crime. That lieutenant, unfortunately, look at this small snapshot, it's a property crime, instead of looking at that big picture of potentially the dangers that are in that vehicle. So yeah.
No, I teach leadership stuff when I teach it from this perspective too. I ask this rhetorical question, say, "Are you okay with not being liked?" And people look at me, they always think right away from their agencies. I said, "Stop. Talking about from your communities." And they look, I said, "There's going to be certain sectors of your community that no matter what it is that you do, are never going to fly a blue line flag, are never going to say, 'Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Police Officer, we love you.' It's not going to happen. Are you okay with that?" Well, I guess. I was like, well, if that's true, then you would stop over exerting so much to get likability compared to comprehension. Totally different. Comprehension comes from, just like I said, opinionless, egoless conversation of, if you do this, we do that. If you call us, we come. This is what, like, just leaving it like that. It's not about giving away stuff. It's not about saying, "Hey, let's go, dance with you and let's go do that." It's I always using the human part of it. I always believe in courtesy. I always believe in all of that. But in just having the honest conversation of, I understand there is nothing I could possibly do to get you to like me. And that's okay. You probably have a reason for that. You see, we can't say that. We will never admit that there are some people that probably have a good reason why they don't like us. I'm okay with admitting that. Why can't you? Why can't you? So now that this shouldn't change the level of service you provide, shouldn't change the level of courtesy you convey, but it's okay to say that. It's okay. And just like I said, this all comes from the basic core tenets of communication, connection. But the real, genuine definitions of that, not another certification, not accreditation, and not another fancy slogan. Just my opinion.
I I love that, and I'm making notes over here because there's a couple things I wanted to unpack. So not being liked by some of the people of the public, that should be a given within that. Knowing that the bad guys really do know. So not having that fear, they know. And I think a lot of the things where society gets frustrated is that lack of transparency, lack of communication, because a lot of the people that I'm friends with that I watch go follow trends, basically, you're like, oh, defund the police, da da da. I'm like, I ask him, I sit down, like, where did you learn that? Where are you getting this from? And so I actually listen to where they're coming from. And a lot of, unfortunately, it's the younger generations being heavily influenced by the voice of a very loud few. And I always advocate for officers, go out into your community, turn off social media, turn off the news, go out into your community, go talk to them. Because my dad was a small town cop that was so well respected because he went out and talked. He could be an asshole if he needed to be, and they all knew that. But they also knew the rules. They knew to respect him. They knew if they broke the rule, there was a consequence, and there was full transparency. What I want to talk about a little bit is diving into not being liked within the department when you do the right thing, because there's several people that I know of in our vicinity at the moment that have had to step up against toxic leadership, against bullies, basically. They've had to go in and file harassment complaints and IAs. And when you do that, and you're not doing it because you're targeting somebody just to be, try to get them out or whatever the issue, if it's a legit IA, they are doing something wrong. I see a lot is that the bullies get really loud and then it turns into high school mentality. They form their clique and they try to get that person out. And so a lot of time you're on an island. So what do you guys have to say to those people that are standing up against toxic leadership and are kind of on their own?
My thought is this. We all have our internal compass, right? And sometimes we are going to have to go against the grain. Sometimes we are going to have to make these decisions that go against what maybe internally what others think. And the one thing that that cops hate is a bad cop, right? Um, if we see something where an officer is breaking the law, just flat out breaking the law, it's we have to take that initiative to do something about it. We have to intervene. We have to correct this, right? And sometimes it is uh, going and letting your command know what's happening here, right? What you observed, or sometimes it's intervention, intervening. Because if we look the other way, uh, if something illegal is happening, that could snowball out of control really quick, and it could really create a cancer within the department. So it can create a culture of negativity because it takes one negative person to turn an entire team into negativity, and I've seen it firsthand. Just like it takes one person to be positive all the time to slowly turn that team into a positive team, right? So but again, it's sometimes you got to stand alone. Sometimes you've got to be the voice of reason, and that's not easy. That's happened to me a few times in my career where I had to go against the even go against command, what they were thinking, right? Because I had to give my if you're going to ask me for my honest opinion, I'm going to give you what I think, and I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm not going to hold anything back, right? And sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good. But what I can say is, after my retirement, throughout my career, I always acted with integrity. I never compromised because the group think everybody's thinking a certain way. So, Tom, what do you think?
No, it's spot on, but I think that we need to do a better job. And I think outsiders, whether it's consultants, whether it's mental health therapists, whether it's advocacy groups, I think there's no excuse now in the advent of modern technology, social media platform, networking platforms. I think we need to have advocates and ambassadors that are good at having the honest conversation with the risks, the inherent risks of going against the grain. If somebody would have explained to me that it would inevitably cost me my marriage by standing on my platform and standing for what's right, um, which would then inevitably mean to me not getting the chief's job, and maybe I would have acted a little differently. I'm not saying that God knows, I mean, my class is called Ivory Tower. I'm not afraid to be controversial against the grain of what I think is wrong, but I wish somebody had explained, and this is going to sound really presumptuous. I wish people were doing more of like what, and I don't want to make it sound the way it's going to sound. I wish people would do more of what I'm willing to do by putting myself out there and having candid conversation with, listen, let's just be fair. The political climate is this. The administration is in bed with the political climate. If you do this, okay, it's going to then also mean this. So, because what we're good at is when it's, I say this all the time, you know what cops are great at? Going to the casino with somebody else's wallet. So you'll get people that say, oh, yeah, 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 tell him to go F off. Tell him, yeah, go file a complaint against them. Right, go file that complaint. And the people that are tasked with investigating that complaint are like this with the person you filed the complaint against. Now what? You happy? You filed the complaint. You're right. You happy though? Now guess what? You're blackballed. Are you good with that? Now there's some people that are. Some people though that say, "Oh no, now I'm never going to get promoted." All right, well, did anybody tell you the risks that were involved with this? So I think that it's just we need to have more people that are willing to have the honest conversation of what exactly it means to go against the grain. It's not enough that just that you get a reputation of you're not the yes man or the yes girl. There's some tolls you have to pay. And I think that we need to be honest with each other about that because it can lead to mental health. I know it did with me because, again, and I own every mistake I've ever made, but I now know what it's like to wake up on Christmas and not be with my kids. And I wouldn't
Mhm.
wish that on anybody.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I've been there too, and you're right. Educating the employees on the potentials of what could happen if you do this, right?
Yeah.
But we have to go back to it's our choice. It's our individual choice to make that decision to file a
Yeah.
complaint or to go against the grain. And if we know what the consequences of that, we're better off. Consequences, I get blackballed, right? Okay, is that the end of the story? No, it's not. What is your backup plan if you get blackballed?
That's my
Right?
point. That's my point.
Exactly. And here's the thing, my backup plan might be that I'm going to go find another agency to work with, right? And do my research, not just jump over, not just do that. Do your research on the different agencies. What's a great way to find out about an agency? Just talk to the officers, right?
Yeah.
Just talk to the officers on the streets. How do you like your agency? And if there's some hesitation there when they answer, probably a good indicator, not the place to go for you. Now, mind you, that being said, you always got to have that backup plan. What am I going to do? And it's your choice. Because many times we've attended briefing trainings where we talk about what we do and you know, what have you, our services. And I remember with a very large agency, we had a group of 25-year veterans working on a graveyard shift. This is how big this agency was, right? To me, where I'm from, that's kind of unheard of. 25 years on and you're working graves. And but you know, to me, it says they love it, right? Cool. If you love it, awesome, keep doing it. But these individuals, some of them felt like they had to be there at work, even though they were completely miserable. They just got into that negative funk, right? And I have to be here. And my response to them was, you don't have to be here. Not one of you in here was forced to be here today. Each one of you has a choice. You can quit, go do something else. Like that's your choice. But what are the consequences of that? Well, you're not going to have payment. Well, you'll have your pension, but you know, medical insurance, dental insurance, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have X, Y, and Z, but it is your choice. Your choice is you can come to work or find something else to do. Nobody's forcing you to do that, right? So again, but if you're more educated on if I go against the grain, this could happen, it prepares you for worst case scenario, right?
That's all I'm saying. And I think,
Yep.
yeah, just protect each other a little bit with that. That's all.
Oh yeah.
And have that backup plan, like you guys both said.
Yeah.
It's do the right thing. If something's out of alignment, out of integrity, stand up, do the right thing. Just know that yeah, things might not look the same for you, and kind of release expectations. So, what, Chris?
No, I was going to say, you know, that old saying, what is it? Do the right thing even when nobody's watching, right?
Yeah.
And I hear that constantly throughout law enforcement. And can you say, for our listeners out there who are listening to this, can you say 100% you do the right thing when nobody's watching, right? Because it's not easy. It's not easy when you're put in that position and you've got to do the right thing, right? Sometimes it's not. So if you can say, yes, I do the right thing when nobody's watching, then cool. And I say that not just from a law enforcement perspective while you're active duty, I'm talking too after, right? After retirement, right? Throughout law enforcement, we're so ingrained with integrity, and integrity matters, right? That's the foundation for
Yeah.
law enforcement. And then we retire, and what happened to integrity? Is it still there, right? That's where you have to be, you have to double time it even when you're retired, because you don't have IA breathing down your back saying you better stay within integrity, right? We don't have that when we retire. So it's put on us ourselves to maintain that same level of integrity after retirement.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to talk on that too for the audience that's listening. If they have retired, what we've also learned is once you get out of law enforcement and you try to work somewhere else, people don't play by the same rules. The integrity and the honesty part, when it comes to especially business, everybody's like, oh, it's business, it's not personal. You got to be really careful who you get in bed with when it comes to business and whatever it looks like, because it's going to be a little bit of culture shock, because then you are out with people that have different sets of values and you might learn some things the hard way. And again, it comes back to staying in integrity, doing the right thing, and letting things go. We've had to let things go where it's like, are we willing to let, a lot of money go because of we're not going to stand for that? Yep. Money will come somewhere else because we're going to be, we can sleep at night, right? So, something else that you guys have just talked about is that officers talk, and recruitment and retention are always big parts. Like everybody's short staffed, and that recruitment piece, yeah, you can have all the fanciest marketing videos and campaigns and all of the stuff. Word of mouth. That is the biggest thing. Your biggest recruitment pieces are your people happy? Do they enjoy their job? Are there wellness services? Are there not just pizza parties, but does the department actually care? Because if that's the case, what I tell people, I've sat down with a lot of chiefs when they're looking at their recruitment piece, and I'm like, tell me your biggest like pain points of the department. Well, we're short staffed. We work all the time. Da, 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 da. I'm like, okay, great. Pretend you're single and that person came and sat down as a first date with you. And they're like, here's the thing about me. Everybody's unhappy. Nobody sleeps. I don't sleep. It's toxic. I'm not going to be around for holidays. I'm not going to do that. I'm probably going to talk shit about a lot of stuff. Da, 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 da. Would you want to date that person? If you're not going to date that person, right? So you want to create your department as being something that people want to be around, that energy. That's the secret sauce to freaking recruitment, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. But I say this all the time. We're directly linked, in my opinion, personality typing. If you were to typology of the personality of sports programs, and you never see collegiate sports programs have a problem, right? Um, and why? It's because people want to be there. I've always said that they aspire to be there, and there's some programs that are more salacious than others, no doubt. But why? So, when you do it that way and you create that culture of belonging, and then what are they? They're proud as all hell to then be an alum of that then program. So for us, is what, AKA retirement. But why? Again, there's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of identification. There's a sense of pride. And again, this all comes from, if you notice, it's what happens. Like I said, they always worry and obsess about what happens within the four walls of their stadium before they worry about what they are perceived to be in the four corners of their jurisdiction, their areas of responsibility, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's those that do that within that message metastasizes to those that would then be forthcoming as far as to join. When we don't do that, and again, and we let our messages be hijacked, by means of some, again, media story, some political oppositionist, or somebody with a vendetta, that then becomes the reality to this new generation. So I think that it's very easy. And then I think our existing personnel should be taught how to better, metabolize the toxicity so that they're not going home. You know what I often see? I teach my most favorite seminar that I'll do is I'll do the families in the morning, and then I meet with the police officers in the afternoon. We come back together. And you know what I laugh at is how many of us, I know I was guilty of this, we would go home during our work cycles, our work careers, and we would MF this one or MF that one. And then, oh hey honey, it's next Friday is the dinner dance, for our police department. You want to go? No. What do you mean? Why would I want to go and be around the people I hear you MF all day? Like, so I'm sorry, I'm supposed to put on a gown and then look presentable and be cordial and like that doesn't, I don't want any part of that. So if we were to just do those little simple things, I think you'd see recruitment go back right back to where it was meant to be. I mean, you can't argue we're making more money than we've ever made, right? I don't want to hear about the public, and the news stuff. I've been to 46 states. The public overwhelmingly supports us.
True.
I'm now part of a television program. I'm telling you, the people that write in overwhelmingly support us. Overwhelmingly. It's not even a conversation. So that's not it. That's lame. That's an excuse that you're making.
Yep.
Mhm.
100% agree.
Yeah, you're right. And the recruitment starts with the individual, often the agency, right? How healthy is this agency? What do they have in place? It really, I kind of laugh at these agencies that are throwing money at the problem. Hey, come sign up for us. We're going to give you a $25,000 bonus, right? And what's going to end up happening? Eventually, that person is just money driven, going there for that. Eventually, they're going to leave, right? Because they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And this is what the departments don't understand, or they lower their standards just to get a body on the street, only to pay for it a few years later when that person who never should have been a cop to begin with is doing some stupid stuff, making the rest of us look bad, right? So these departments have to understand the pendulum, it's going to swing the other direction where we're going to get back up in numbers. So stop wasting money on these outside agencies to come in to do your recruitment for you. And it astounds me that these departments are hiring individual companies that have no law enforcement background to come in to recruit people. So you're going to just bring some random person or some random company in that doesn't know anything about policing to bring us more police officers, recruits. Doesn't make any sense. You're throwing money away. Instead, reinvest that money that you were going to do for recruitment, reinvest it in your agency, in the men and women within your agency. Because if you have happy employees, that's the best advertisement right there. Right there. Not this coffee with a cop every month. I laugh at those because you're going to go and your command staff is going to be at a coffee shop and poof, the public will love you. They already love you. You don't need to do this song and dance show for them, right? Or putting your police decals, right? Different colors depending on the month and what it is, right? It's like how much money again are you wasting? Invest in your people. Put some coaching. Put some weights in the weight room, or create a nice DT room with mats so your officers can roll around if they're into BJJ or MMA, right? Let them alleviate some of that stress. Invest in your people. Stop trying to throw money at the problem because you're just wasting money.
So I have a question. So you guys are talking, within the four walls. If we have somebody that's listening to this and they're getting it, they're like, yep, these guys know what they're talking about, and they're in a position within their department of like, okay, yes, we need a shift within our department, but how? Because when you're looking, like, say you're at the bottom and you're looking at this trajectory of like, we're in a really toxic work environment right now. There's a lot of things that need to change. It can become overwhelming and almost seem impossible. Like we'll never get there. So what first couple little baby steps, what are some super simple action steps that an individual within a department could implement this week to start moving that needle for their department?
Personally, I think it's going back to basics. I think we've gotten way too far away from what the basics were ever intended to be with our positions. I don't have an ego, so I'm the first one that will say I'm starting my 25th year. The job is more difficult today than it was when I first started. Their rule books are this big. Everything that they do is caught on camera. If heaven forbid their tie bar is crooked, we throw them to the wolves. The job is more difficult. Let's go back to basics and let's reduce what it is that's expected of them in terms of what we all know to be impossibilities. It is absolutely impossible for a young man or a young woman to retain all the stuff we've thrown at them that we expect them to get perfect every time. Absolutely impossible. Am I saying to lower standards? Absolutely not. Am I saying to condone bad behavior, poor performance? Absolutely not. I'm saying to stop making them feel as if they're walking in to start their career already with a noose on their necks. I think if we relax the environment in terms of what's expected of them, meaning for compliance, I think you would see people all of a sudden feel comfortable again to take risks. I don't mean reckless risks. I mean to get out of a car, to walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? What's the deal?" To go up to people and have positive interactions, to, like you said your father did, to go just walk and talk to people. I think you'd start to see that because they wouldn't feel as if they have so many, like the rooms closing in on them. And everybody has room within their budgets for that.
Yeah, I think at the individual level too, it's you have to watch how you are, how your thoughts are, right? If
Yeah.
you go to work with a negative mindset, negative attitude, well, guess what? You're going to see throughout your shift is nothing but negativity. On top of, let's face it, we're in law enforcement. We People call us because they're having the worst day of their life. I don't know about you, Tom, but have you ever received a call where somebody said, "Hey, I am having the greatest day. Can you send an officer to my house so I can share this great day with them?" Has that ever happened to you? Right?
No.
No, it just doesn't happen, right? And I asked that question in every one of my classes, and I've yet to say, yes, that's happened to me. Because usually it's the worst day of their life. So all the more reason that we have to have that positive attitude and look for the positive things. Now, I'm a realist. I know sometimes you're just going to have one of those shitty days where you feel like garbage and what have you. But you have to be able to, this is why coaching is so important. This is why I got into coaching myself. It's because I fell into that negative funk. Everything I looked at was negative. My interaction with people was negative, dropping F bombs and being very unprofessional, right? And to the point where finally it just everything came crumbling down around me. I had to fix something. I either had to get out of law enforcement or I got to fix this. And I chose to fix it, right? So again, that's why I got into law enforcement or law enforcement coaching, creating these techniques that help. But it's those day-to-day operations. What am I doing daily? And we talked in previous episodes about self-care, preventative maintenance, self-care, doing those things that make us happy, doing those things that give us balance, doing those things that help us alleviate stress from just life in general, not just our career, because yes, we'll get stress from our career, but life in general, stuff that happens on the outside or with our family, right? We have a high rate of divorce in our profession and been there, done that. And one of the toughest times in my life was going through that divorce, going through that separation, being home and my son's room is empty because he's not with me right now because my ex-wife has him throughout the week. Those were tough times. And I know law enforcement officers and firefighters, first responders, they go through that. But just know this, those tough times are temporary. They don't last forever. It does go away. And I think that is huge. So in order to contribute to an agency, we have to conduct ourselves. We have to start with ourselves first. Because sitting down, and I don't know if you've had this happen to you, Tom, but sitting down with your friends for lunch, all it takes is one person to say something negative about another coworker, and what ends up happening? Yes, it's piranhas and sharks, right? Once we smell blood in the water, we all start to attack, right? We need to stop doing that. We don't need to go into the negative, and because here's the thing, what is that going to accomplish? It just puts us all in that negative, low vibe funk, and that's not going to help us. So, Tammy, I'll turn it over to you here.
Well, I wasn't, you talked about preventative maintenance, and I want to kind of shift the conversation real quick. Something that departments can do for preventative maintenance that will also help the officers is doing some classes. I would say going to high schools, going to driver's ed classes, and then also doing social media, reaching out to the community of how people should act when they get pulled over. Society's not taught how to do that. I was taught how to do that because my dad was a cop. So I was raised, when I started learning how to drive, if I get pulled over, respect authority. Yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Here, give your driver's license, do these things. And there's a really toxic trend that's happening that I'm seeing on social media. All these videos of people recording the cops of when they get pulled over, they refuse to roll down their window, they roll down their window a little bit, and then they start off saying, "I know my rights." Shut up. If you're being pulled over and you start with "I know my rights," guess what? You don't. Um, so for departments, teaching the teenagers right now, because they're learning from social media and it's getting everybody in trouble and it's getting people hurt. It's getting cops into really bad positions because now they just pulled somebody over because it's like, hey, you're going 5 over, you're going to get a warning. And instead, now they're arresting somebody because they're refusing to ID themselves, they're refusing to answer questions because they think they know what they're doing and they're being a little badass. So I'm kind of on a tangent because my algorithm pulls up everything and I'm seeing more and more of these videos. So preventative maintenance for the departments is to reach in, lean into the community, go teach the teenagers specifically how to actually communicate with the cops so that it mitigates risk on everybody's part. Sorry,
But I think I think that's twofold. I think yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We should do that, but I think it would be a resounding message to the troops within the building if the heads of their organizations also advocated on a public platform that I will not tolerate treatment of the personnel that work in my department in this sort of way. Now, let me define what that means. If you assault a police officer, if you so and I here we go again. Well, what did we started the hour with talking about honest communication. Hey, you want a pretty solid, reliable way of how not to get a summons? Behave this way.
Mm-hmm.
Treat my people. I'm the head of my organization. I would have zero reluctance to advocate. if you treat my people for an infraction you did with dignity and respect, you could almost guarantee that that will come right back to you as a boomerang. And I have statistically proven fact to show overwhelmingly you will probably be let off with a warning. Now, I wouldn't tie myself to absolutes, but here I am giving you inside baseball as to that behooves you, right? Not going to get a ticket that way. And it behooves me because I'm letting my guys and girls know I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm just not going to tolerate it. I've watched leaders duck and stick their heads in the sand when they've watched their communities treat their people as if they're their enemies. And the leaders don't do anything. Now, they're the first ones, though, if one of their troops, heaven forbid, gets it wrong. We go on our apology tour. But what about when your troops get it right and they get treated with, repulsive behavior and you don't say a damn word about it? You just don't have my respect there.
I agree. There's a couple sheriffs in Florida that I've seen videos and I'm like,
Yeah.
they call people out and I have respect for that. That's how my dad was. He was no bullshit. He was very old school. Tell you
Yeah.
like it is. This ABC, do this. This is the consequence.
Yeah.
Chris, what were you
Yeah.
going to say?
Mhm. No, it's the culture of within the department, right? It's upon the leadership as well. Yes, the individual officers, but also the leadership, and it's accountability, right? If you're going to hold your officers accountable for their actions, and you have to be held accountable for those officers that do something really bad, because again, you're part of that leadership. And if it becomes part of the culture, well, then what's the accountability at the top, right, for that individual? And I will say that educating the public, being proactive, and having officers out there in the public, right? That is key. That is key because I've seen that firsthand. And I'll say, with a certain detective that I used to work with, she was a gang detective. She was always shifting her hours and days so that she would work on the weekends at night to go to these party calls to go talk to the kids, right? And to gather intel. And she had her finger on the pulse of everything that was happening. She would really, she would neutralize a major situation because why? She was proactive. She was out there doing her thing. And then she leaves, right? And they don't do that anymore. And what ends up happening? Major issues happen, right? I won't say where, or what, but major issues happen. Why? Because there's a lack of leadership there. There's a lack of putting your officer, having that accountability of your lack of leadership within that agency, right? And I could go into a lot about this, but I won't do that. But again, it's accountability. We have to hold ourselves accountable, whether you're the line officer, whether you're the chief, him or herself. You have to be accountable for your actions, for the actions within your agency.
Awesome. Well, I want to honor everybody's time. So, what I always end our podcast with is I want you guys to just, if there's one listener that's listening to just the end of this, what is the biggest takeaway piece of advice or guidance that you could have for somebody just tuning into the end of this? You could rock, paper, scissors, whichever wants to go.
Well, Tom, since you're our guest, we'll let you go last, so you have the main floor there. But I would say just carry yourself with integrity, no matter what, as an individual officer. And know, yes, you're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days, but no matter how you're feeling, if it's a negative feeling, it's temporary, it'll go away. Always remember, why did you enter this profession to begin with, right? And a lot of us say we entered it to help people, to be a part of something bigger, right? Always remember that, never forget that. And by the way, those very few out there who are the loudest, who are the most negative, that's a small percentage of the population. A majority of the population actually supports you and loves what you're doing. And just always remember that.
No, and I love that, Chris. And I would say very similar. The brain's a funny tool, and I think that it's worth exercising just as much as we do other parts of our body. And I think it's worth, really, I guess, proclaiming the amazing strength that the brain has on the body. And I think if you don't get your headspace right, the body's going to go ahead and go right down that same rabbit hole. If you go looking out for evidence of why you're in a toxic environment, you'll find it. Doesn't matter where you are. And then you're going to falsely believe that everything around you is toxic. And then you don't realize you become the toxicity. You become the catalyst for the toxicity. I know and I own the common denominator in every failed endeavor or relationship I had was me. Doesn't mean I'm to blame, but I'm the common denominator. I was involved. So I believe in the overwhelming strength and power of embracing my vulnerability, sharing it with other people. And with that, I get from other people, they share them with me, and they give me tools and tactics to use. Not all of them are going to be applicable to each other, but some of them certainly can be. Even if it's, Chris shares with me as something that he did, and I say, all right, well, now I know I won't do that. So that's what comes in vulnerability with each other. And I always love quotes that then I apply to life lessons, like if the flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment, not the flower. And sometimes the environment doesn't mean just transferring agency. Sometimes the environment is what's in between your two ears and how it is that you see things, how it is that you perceive things. But that's where mentorship and coaching is so damn important. Think about it. You mentor and coach for just a training period when you get hired, and then what does it go away? There's no more need for it. There's a constant evolution need for that. So I just wish that we would advocate for how important that is and then celebrate it by means of reward. What does rewards look like? Well, me personally, if you score a 99.9 on a test, that's very impressive. That's good. Me, I love if I find somebody that mentors other people, I'm like, that is a leader, man. Give that guy or girl whatever cookies the agency has. Show so that other people look around and say, hey, I can do that. So then do it. I believe in diplomacy, right? So if you are a divorcee, mentor somebody else that if they're going through that, unfortunately, if you have children, mentor a police officer who's having their first baby. That's life changing. If you're good at real estate and finances, mentor police officers who are buying homes or trying to invest their money. These are the things that we could do for free. We already have this expertise within our ranks. I think it's about time we should act like it.
I absolutely love that. The mentoring part, the coaching part, the biggest thing too, I see this on social media specifically, but if you're going to mentor, don't just start throwing advice, ask questions, listen to what
Yeah,
they're doing,
yeah,
and then ask some more questions before you dump your advice on them. But make sure, you lean in. I love that you're, breaking it down, especially the parenting, the new parenting. I think that if there was just somebody hyper focused on coaching through the parenting part of it, because so many different aspects and facets come into that, and it's going to shift. So I had one other point I wanted to make, that focusing where you focus your energy. So yes, it's very easy to look at the negatives and all of the toxic things within the environment, but one of the shiftest ways, there we go, it's early, the best ways to shift is to, okay, what is the department doing right? What is this person doing right? What is my husband or wife doing right? What do I like about this? What are the positives? And if you sit there, and it might be really hard, you might have to like take pen to paper and write down 1 to 3 things of like, well, I like this. But if you do that consistently every day, you will start retraining your brain of how to see more of the positives. And that way it makes the negatives a little bit easier to say, hey, you know what, we could just pivot here a little bit versus being just bombarded with negative all the time. So with that, if you guys are tuning in and you like the podcast, you can join in the conversation. The last Tuesday of every month, we have a live group call where first responders from around the country can be part of that conversation, share what's working, get advice and guidance, and just, help move the needle a little bit forward. We are wrapping up our month of navigating toxic work environments, and we will be moving into next month, which is all about failure and failing forward. Guess what? You can't be successful without failure. So it's not an end or anything to be ashamed of. It is a growth tool. So on that note, please like, subscribe, follow, do all the things. Get Tom's book. I got it right there. You can get that. You can order it from Amazon. You can get it when we see you, we'll be seeing you soon, I think. So I'll make sure you sign it.
That's it.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And until next week.